You know the old story, right? For decades, whenever intelligence agencies got a big prediction wrong, we all kind of assumed the same thing. They just didn't have all the pieces. They were missing data. But what if that whole idea is just wrong? There's this groundbreaking new study that says the real problem isn't what we don't know. It's what we're so sure we do know. Okay, let's get into it.
Yeah, that sentence you're looking at right there, that is the explosive core idea from a 2025 study by analyst Aslan Sultan. And it just forces you to rethink everything about why we get the future wrong. It's not about missing information. It's about a failure of imagination. And look, this isn't just some hot take or a wild opinion. This conclusion is the result of a massive 50-year analysis. Think about that. Sultan went all the way back to the forecasts made in 1974 and stacked them up against what actually happened by 2025. This is a deep, systematic look at a problem that's been plaguing us for a long, long time.
All right, so let's dig into the first really big takeaway from Sultan's work. It turns out intelligence agencies weren't blind at all. Actually, it's the opposite. His research shows they were staring so hard at the present, they were completely blind to the future that was barreling right at them.
That's right. So that whole idea we have, that we were just missing key pieces of the puzzle, it's pretty much a myth. What the study found was that back in 1974, analysts had all the data they needed. The spreadsheets were full. The numbers were all there. The epic failure wasn't in the data collection. It was in what they did with it, how they read the signs.
And this is where it gets really fascinating. Look at this breakdown. The analysts in 74, they were geniuses at tracking the stable stuff, the things you can count, right? Oil flows, pipelines, who's who in the government hierarchy. They had that down cold, but they completely, totally missed the fluid forces, the stuff that actually makes history happen. Things like popular anger, revolutions, how quickly states can just fall apart, or how fast new energy sources can change everything. It's like they saw the hardware of power perfectly, but were completely blind to the software of change.
So this consistent mistake, always focusing on the stable stuff and ignoring the messy, fluid parts of reality, led Aslan Sultan to identify a specific kind of mental mistake, a cognitive bias. It's like a fundamental flaw in how we think, and he gives it a really powerful name.
He calls it the permanence trap. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's this default setting in our brains that assumes the way things are right now is how they're going to be forever. It's when we look at a country's government or its energy supply and we treat it like it's a fixed, solid thing, when all of history screams at us that those things are actually incredibly fragile and always, always changing. And once you fall into this trap, you develop these huge blind spots. It's why we always seem to underestimate just how fast corruption can rot a country from the inside out. It's why we're so shocked when a regime that looks all-powerful on Monday is just gone by Friday. And it's why we think big changes, like an energy transition, will take forever when they can happen way, way faster than we think. And this quote from Sultan himself really hits the nail on the head. He's saying this isn't just about listing a bunch of times we got it wrong in the past. It's what he calls a philosophical intelligence reading. He's basically doing an audit on how we think. And his argument is pretty radical. If we ever want to get the future right, we have to start by fixing the way we see the present.
Okay, so this is all fascinating history, but what about now? How does this apply to our world today? Well, the scary part is this isn't just a lesson about 1974. Sultan's whole point is that this exact same permanence trap is distorting how we see the world right now. So that really begs the question, doesn't it? Where are we falling into this trap today? What things do we look at and assume are permanent when they're actually just temporary? Well, once you start looking for it, you see examples everywhere.
Let's take the Gulf, for instance. For as long as we can remember, power there has been measured in barrels of oil. It's a stable thing, you can count it. But that's the permanence trap in action. If you're only focused on the oil reserves, you're completely missing the real game, which is shifted to a much more fluid currency, things like strategic influence, tech, and who your friends are. The oil's still there, sure, but its power? Not so permanent anymore.
It's the same thing with the great powers, the US, China, Russia. The old view, the permanence view, is all about fixed alliances, these solid blocks that last forever. But the fluid reality? It's all about temporary, shifting interests. The rival from yesterday could be your partner on one specific issue tomorrow, and your closest ally today, they could be your biggest competitor next week. It's way more dynamic than we like to admit.
Or think about the conflict between Israel and Iran. The permanence trap is why leaders put so much faith in treaties and paper agreements. They see a signed document and assume it creates permanent stability. But those pieces of paper often completely ignore the deeper, more powerful currents of history, identity, and raw ideology. The stuff that can wash away a treaty like it was never even there.
Okay, so if the old way of thinking is clearly broken, what's the fix? Well, the great thing about Sultan's study is that it doesn't just point out the problem, it actually offers a whole new philosophy, a new way to think about what's coming next.
And it really boils down to 3 big steps. Step 1. We have to constantly question our own assumptions about what we think is permanent. Just ask, is this really going to last forever? Step 2. We need to intentionally focus more on those fluid forces, the social movements, the corruption, the ideas, even more than the easy-to-count stuff. And number 3, and this one might be the hardest, is to just accept uncertainty, to see it as a normal part of the world, not some kind of error in our spreadsheet.
Now, obviously, we're just scratching the surface of a really huge idea here. So for anybody out there who wants to dive way deeper into this stuff, Aslan Sultan has put the entire study online. It's on the Zenodo Hub Open Data Repository, and trust me, it is a fascinating read.
Which really leaves us with one final and kind of scary question to ask ourselves. When you look at the world today, our economy, our governments, our technology, what are the things that we are treating as permanent? What are the big, solid pillars of our world that might actually be way more fragile than any of us think?